How has your recruiting scope, strategy evolved?
Well, I think, really, to be honest, it started before this recent success. I can remember we were recruiting at an extremely high level before that, and that's what Coach Sweeney, he always, thanks the Taj Boyds and Sammy Watkins and those guys. Sammy Watkins, being one of the top players in the country, he came to Clemson when we were 6 and 7 his senior year of high school, and still chose to come to Clemson because he believed in what Coach Sweeney was doing and the culture and what was coming in the future. And so really I think that our recruiting really hasn't changed a whole lot, to be honest. I think, we obviously maybe have more national coverage. The brand is stronger than it's ever been. We got a brand new football facility we're getting ready to move into next month. So there's been a lot of exciting changes going on, but I don't really feel like our recruiting has changed in the last 3 years. I feel like, we've been very blessed to really get a high percentage of our top targets, and that's one reason that we're sitting here today.
And you're seeing Ohio State more than ever, maybe on the trail.
No question. I go back to 3 or 4 years ago when both of us were recruiting Raekwon McMillan. I recruited Raekwon personally since he was in the 9th grade, and I went to his high school, I believe, about 16 times in 4 years, and they were recruiting Deshaun Watson for a long time as well. So we've had some good recruiting battles back and forth. I have a lot of respect for their staff, the way they do things. I know several of their coaches. I run into them on the recruiting trail from time to time. There was one time this past spring that I saw Zach Smith, the wide receiver coach, up in maybe New Jersey, and had a nice visit with him at a prospects campus, watching him practice, and then the very next day we happened to be at the same school in Tennessee, without even mentioning that to each other. So I was like, hey, I guess we're on the right guys here. We could probably travel together and save somebody some money somewhere. But those guys do a great job, and that's one reason that they have had the success they've had because of their recruiting prowess.
Raekwon mentioned your recruitment of him and the relationship that you built then and continue to maintain with your wife and everything. What do you remember about that whole process?
Yeah, I remember early on I knew Ohio State was a major factor. 2 of his high school coaches were major Ohio State fans and great guys that I got to know and became very close to throughout the entire process. But Raekwon was first class. I could tell. We were recruiting Deshaun at the same time, and it's like you're recruiting the same person. Like, Raekwon, wherever he goes, he's going to be the captain, the leader of his defense for several years, and be a great player because of his character, his work ethic, just everything about him. You can recognize that, and those top 3 percenters, you can recognize that in 5 minutes, and that's one reason that we recruited him as hard as we did, even though we knew Ohio State was a heavy favorite early on. But I would say Raekwon's probably, personally for me, he's probably my favorite recruit that I recruited that did not come to Clemson. And I still keep up with him from time to time. As soon as the matchup was released, within 5 minutes I got a little message from him on Twitter. Hey, Coach, hope to see you out there. Looking forward to playing you guys. And he's been first class the whole way, but definitely one of my favorite recruits.
But if you can only have one, you take the quarterback, right?
Yes, I definitely would take Deshaun. I don't think Raekwon can throw it that well.
Hey, Jeff, as you're in the receiving room and you're looking at film for the first time, what's the initial message to the receivers? Because I think this is the best I can do.
Yeah, I think the initial message to those guys is, hey, we've got a great challenge. And, when you coach talented guys like we have at Clemson and in that wide receiver room, they get excited about challenges. And, we've had some good challenges this year. There's been some, playing Virginia Tech, I was very impressed with their secondary and even more impressed after playing them than I was before watching the video. And when you turn on this video with Ohio State, you really don't see, here's what I look for whenever I turn on a video and I start watching for the first time is who can we pick on? Usually everybody has that one corner that's really good, but then outside of that other corner is just okay. So you're trying to find matchups. How can we get our best guy versus maybe, but when I've watched the entire season of Ohio State, you don't see that. Like, all right, all these guys can play, they can all run. They've got great ball skills. That's one thing that I noticed is they've made some unbelievable interceptions. And so that's one comment that I made to the wide receivers is, hey, if you ever find yourself in a position where they've kind of got you boxed out, you got to become a defender, knock the ball down, because these guys can catch it.
Yeah.
They go attack the ball just like a wide receiver would attack the ball at the high point. Do a great job with that. But I think overall speed is what shows up. Speed and technique. I think Hooker, I would put him and Derwin James as the best two safeties that we didn't play. Derwin didn't play against us this year.
Cliche, obviously, that you'll win the game from the center to the tackle. That's obviously true, but in a game like this, is it possible that matchup is going to be as impactful in the final result as it?
We definitely paint that picture in our room. I mean, that's I think that's each coach's responsibility to kind of challenge his guys to win the matchup. And when you get to this level where everybody is talented, everybody is pretty much equal, it really comes down to your guys winning the matchup. I mean, you go back to the ACC championship game and the second to last drive, and we had to go down and score a touchdown. Hunter Renfrow wins the matchup on that ball, and Deion Kane wins the matchup. If we don't win that matchup, there's a chance we don't win that game. And so it's going to come down to winning matchups with the guys over you. And the big message, for those guys this week is, hey, these guys are very talented. Just as confident as we are in our guys because of all the experiences we've had with our guys through the years. That's the same confidence that they have in their guys. And so it's going to kind of be like a heavyweight fight. It's going to be a great matchup to watch. And, as a coach, you're excited to coach in these games, but I think it's going to be, as a fan, even more excited to sit at home and watch. And not just that matchup. There's going to be a lot of good matchups across the board. But that'll definitely be one with a lot of those guys going in that matchup are going to be playing on Sundays one day, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Hey, Jeff, assistants pick up bits and pieces from the guy they work under. What have you picked up mainly? A couple things from Dabo, and what do you appreciate about how he does things?
Yeah, I think probably number one is the importance of instilling the attitude of belief among your players. And that's something I was very fortunate to be with Coach Sweeney from the day that he took over as interim. That's where I got my position to be able to move up to wide receiver coach. And from his very first meeting all the way to now, obviously he's improved as a head coach, but he's really very similar to who he was back then. And the biggest thing is just instilling that attitude of belief among your players. And there's a confidence that comes with that. And not just a belief of, oh yeah, I believe we can win, but instilling that in the way that you prepare so that your guys, have that confidence whenever they step out in that field. And I think that's one of the biggest differences that I've seen at Clemson in the last few years is, in the past we may go into a few games like this hoping to win, wanting to win, and now our guys go into this game believing that they're going to win. And there's something very powerful in that. And then I think also, Coach Sweeney does an excellent job of pushing the right buttons with the players behind the scenes. I mean, he has a great ability to kind of read the players, see where they are, and find ways that are very real to inspire them to play their best. And that's another thing that he talks about all the time is best is the standard. And, whatever your best is, that's what I expect you to do in the classroom, off the field, and on the field. And that's, I can remember one practice we were having in our indoor facility, and we got a huge banner, about half the sideline of the indoor facility that says best is standard. There's one point, maybe a year ago, that Coach Sweeney called the whole team up in the middle of the practice. It wasn't going real well. It just wasn't as clean of a practice as we would like to have. He called everybody up to the middle of the field, and in the middle of practice, stopped practice, called everybody up, and he said, do we need to get another banner? And put just okay is the standard. Average is the standard. He said, because that's how y'all are practicing today. Now, if we're truly going to live by that standard, we can't practice the way we're practicing because this is not your best. I know what your best is. And so just those things, I think, behind the scenes is things that make Coach Sweeney very special. And then the last thing is, I would say, he's very genuine. What you see is what you get. I mean, he truly has a genuine appreciation for his players, for his coaches, for the managers, for the trainers. I mean, everybody involved. He knows them personally by name. He knows everybody in their family. And, it's a little bit of a cliche, but he truly cares about our guys more who they are as young men than who they are as football players. And sometimes as coaches, we may get a little frustrating because every day we start off with a team meeting, and as coaches, coordinators, and position coaches, we got all this meetings, stuff that we want to cover in our meeting, and he may spend the first 10 or 15 minutes talking about something that has zero to do with football, but has everything to do with preparing those guys for when they leave Clemson, because he knows they have a very short window while they're here, and he truly wants to see them be successful when they leave.
Jeff, when you raised that, are his people skills the best thing about how he does his job?
Yeah, I believe so. I think he relates very well to people. I know whenever he goes and he's recruiting, sometimes maybe with the higher level head coaches, there's a little bit of a kind of a glass shield and stuff just naturally. Mm-hmm. And Coach Sweeney doesn't have that at all. I mean, he can go sit on the couch and it's just like that recruit's sitting there talking to his high school coach, and kids and their families feel very comfortable once they see how genuine he is and how real he is as a person. But there's no doubt he's got great people skills and communicates extremely well with our players and really with everybody around the program.
Chad used to talk a lot about how what he really enjoyed about working for him was that he lets you guys do your job. You don't feel like you're micromanaged all the time. Do you share that opinion? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, I think Coach Sweeney's philosophy is to hire a great staff, and he's definitely mentored us along the way. I mean, myself and Coach Elliott, we both kind of started off I started off as a GA, and Coach Elliott started off as a player under Coach Sweeney, so he's definitely mentored us a lot along the way. I mean, I give him a lot of credit for the skills and fundamentals and techniques that I've learned as a wide receiver coach. I learned from him, early, even when I was a high school coach, coming back working camps while he was the wide receiver coach. I did that for 4 or 5 years with him, studied with him in the off season, and then, watching him work here at Clemson has been extremely well. But yeah, he lets the coaches coach. He believes in his guys. Just like anybody, he'll have his, he'll kind of set the temperament and what he expects, set those expectations, but then he gives you the ability to go get that job done. And it's definitely, I think, one reason that we've had very little coaching turnover. We've got a lot of talented coaches on our staff that have had a lot of opportunities that maybe don't get made public. And but I believe we've only had 2 coaches maybe leave in the last 4 or 5 years, which is very rare for a program that's had the success that we've had at Clemson.
Jeff, was there worry with Deshaun his senior year? He said Ohio State was trying to flip him, and they were probably his second choice. Was there a worry with you guys at all?
Not really, because Deshaun, because he committed so early, and the communication, the relationship was so deep with him. Obviously as coaches, until they sign or they enroll early as a mid-year, you always have this kind of, mechanism in the back of your head. You got to kind of look around every corner and be sure that our guys are still focused on their decision. But really, Deshaun was very straightforward the whole time. He was a guy, a lot of the best players that I've been around and I've been involved recruiting with, once they decided where they wanted to go to school, they made that decision and they moved on. Right. And that's how it was recruiting Sammy Watkins, and Deshaun was a lot the same way. We knew getting him recruited that early, his sophomore year, that he was going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, one of the best players in the country, and that there would be some of that interest coming, but I don't think it ever got to a serious enough level that we really felt like he was wavering in his decision.
Did you know that there were schools like Ohio State that were really trying to?
Oh yeah, we definitely knew that, and we stayed in constant contact. And I give a lot of credit. Coach Sweeney did an excellent job with him in the recruiting process, but Chad Morris, deserves a lot of credit for Deshaun being at Clemson, because he spent a lot of time, many hours on the phone, and a lot of energy in recruiting Deshaun, developing that relationship that I think ultimately, was one of the main factors in Deshaun coming to Clemson.
Mike with Mike's, rehab, Wayne was saying like a few weeks after the injury, he was already doing stuff, maybe faster than he was even supposed to. Do you remember kind of how fast he started to attack the
I
rehab?
think probably the frustrating thing for him in that injury, if you tear an ACL, I mean, it's pretty obvious you can get out there,
Right.
that you can't run. But I think his injury and kind of where it was, and it's really a very small fracture, in one of the bones there, he didn't feel it. So to him, he's walking around, I'm fine, I can play, and but really you can't play because you got to let all that stuff have time to heal. So I think that was probably more frustrating than guys that, have a shoulder surgery or knee surgery or something where they understand it's going to be a while for them to get back. And, but yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, it's hard enough to sit out 1 or 2 weeks in a season when you're a maiden player, but to have to sit out an entire season, especially a team that goes on and makes it to the college playoff, is extremely hard for a guy. And I can definitely tell this year he's made the most of every opportunity he's gotten this year.
How is he a better receiver now than he was before his injury?
I think number one, he's stronger. He's 225 pounds. Last year he came in the season about 210 right there, and so that was very obvious whenever he showed up for fall camp at 225 pounds, and I wanted to see if he could play at that weight, and he did very well the first couple weeks of practice there in 2 days and held that weight. So understanding, that in the boundary you got to be a physical guy, and I think that's something that maybe early on in his career he was a guy that wanted to kind of run around guys like a lot of freshman receivers want to do and try to use their speed and athleticism to get open. But understanding that it's really a combat battle right there in the boundary. When you're a boundary receiver, you're usually going against the best corner that the defense has, and you got to go win those matchups by being physical and leaning on guys and playing above the rim. And I think that's probably the biggest area that Mike's improved, that's really elevated his game to the level where he is now.
How active was he last year, just in terms of being around the guys?
Yeah, he was good.
Every game?
Yeah, he went. He didn't travel to the away games, but one of the first things that we did is we gave him a whistle, and I said, "All right, you're going to be Coach Williams. I want you to coach up these young guys. I got a guy like Deion Kane over here, a true freshman, and I can't watch them all. I'm coaching as hard as I can, but you can sit here and spend a lot of times." Helping Deion and the other guys that played his position. And so he was involved. He was in a lot of our meetings, pretty much all of our meetings, and he followed the receivers around every day at practice. And that was important for Coach Sweeney, as he wanted to keep Mike involved, and like we do with all of our injured players.
Hey, Jeff, you mentioned when you were recruiting Raekwon that you knew that